It took only 2 days to turn America's fastest-growing city into a smoking skeleton of ash. What began as a spark in a small barn would unleash a catastrophe so vast that it triggered military deployment, transformed national fire safety, and reshaped the future of American urban life. Chicago in 1871 was a miracle of speed, a city that grew from 30,000 people in 1850 to over 330,000 by 1871. Its streets crowded with wooden houses, wooden sidewalks, and even wooden roofs. Nearly 90% of all buildings were made of lumber, stacked tightly and dried by a long summer drought. By late September 1871, the region had endured 3 months without meaningful rain, leaving yards, alleys, and warehouses filled with tinder-dry debris. Firefighters, only 185 men in total, equipped mostly with horse-drawn steam pumpers and leather hoses, were exhausted after battling nearly 20 major fires in a single week before the disaster. Industrial warehouses storing tar, coal, and canvas stood dangerously close to homes, meaning even a small spark could ignite a chain reaction across entire neighborhoods. The fire began in the O'Leary family's barn, though its precise cause remains disputed. Rumors of a kicked lantern, boys smoking, or a cow knocking something over. A strong southwest wind, reaching 30 miles per hour, 48 kilometers per hour, carried blazing embers across the neighborhood faster than the exhausted fire crews could respond. Chicago's alarm system malfunctioned when a watchman sent the alert to the wrong district, causing a 20-minute delay, a fatal gap in urban fire strategy. Within an hour, flames leapt across the south branch of the Chicago River, igniting lumber yards and railway cars full of kerosene-soaked grain sacks. Investigators later noted that the wooden bridges themselves acted like fuel-soaked fuses, helping the flames race across the river and deep into the city's industrial heart. By midnight, the Inferno had become a full firestorm, creating its own weather as temperatures soared above 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, 1,093 degrees Celsius. Witnesses reported fire tornadoes twisting through the streets, fueled by warehouses full of coal, dry wood, and oil. The city's 11 fire stations deployed every engine, but the horses pulling water wagons collapsed from heat and exhaustion. Firefighters attempted a firebreak strategy by demolishing buildings with axes and dynamite, but the wind carried flames over the gaps before the debris even fell. Entire blocks ignited within seconds, and streets lined with wooden sidewalks funneled flames like burning rivers, leaving residents only moments to escape with their lives. The fire surged into the downtown district known as the Loop, destroying the Chicago Tribune building, the courthouse, grain elevators, and entire commercial blocks. Steel safes in businesses and banks overheated so severely that their contents ignited when exposed to air. Soldiers from the U.S. Army garrison at Fort Dearborn, about 200 troops, were deployed to control looting and assist evacuation while police struggled to maintain order. Telegraph lines melted, cutting off communication with the outside world as Chicago vanished inside a wall of flame. Merchants watched helplessly as decades of wealth evaporated in hours, and crowds fled toward the riverbanks, surrounded by falling embers and collapsing structures. As winds shifted, the fire jumped the river again, racing into the densely populated north side, home to immigrants from Germany, Sweden, Ireland, and Bohemia. Families fled with whatever they could carry. Some leapt into the Lake Michigan shoreline as the last escape route. Volunteer brigades attempted to redirect the flames using bucket lines and wet blankets, but the fire's advance was unstoppable. The water tower and pumping station, built of limestone, became iconic survivors amid an ocean of ash. Thousands of residents huddled along the lakeshore for hours, watching their neighborhoods vanish behind churning walls of fire that consumed everything from factories to wooden cottages. A sudden change in the weather, cooler air, and a light rain finally weakened the fire around 3 a.m. Exhausted crews extinguished the remaining pockets by sunrise. In just over 31 hours, the Great Chicago Fire had burned 3.3 square miles, destroying 17,500 buildings, killing an estimated 300 people and leaving 100,000 residents homeless, 1/3 of the city's population. Damage costs were later calculated at $222 million, over $5 billion today. Many survivors described an eerie silence the next morning, broken only by the crackling of smoldering ruins and the distant cries of families searching for missing loved ones. Chicago's mayor, Roswell B. Mason, placed the city under martial law, giving military officials broad authority to maintain order. The U.S. Army established food lines, medical stations, and refugee camps, deploying tent cities on open fields. Relief poured in. New York sent trainloads of supplies. London raised £7,000, and donations arrived from Canada, France, and even distant Australia. The humanitarian effort became one of the largest international relief campaigns of the 19th century. Church groups, volunteer nurses, and immigrant associations worked non-stop to distribute clothing, rebuild shelters, and reunite families separated during the frantic night evacuations. Within weeks, architects, engineers, and city planners began reconstructing Chicago with new materials and designs. Wood was replaced by brick, limestone, and iron, and fire codes banned flammable roofing and introduced mandatory firewalls. Insurance companies pressured builders to adopt steel frame structures, creating the foundation for what would soon become the world's first skyscrapers. Entrepreneurs like Marshall Field and Potter Palmer reinvested in larger, safer stores and hotels, accelerating a building boom unlike anything in American history. The reconstruction attracted thousands of laborers, turning Chicago into the nation's busiest construction zone and creating a new architectural identity centered on strength and innovation. The catastrophe transformed firefighting nationwide. Chicago upgraded to horse-drawn steam pumpers with greater pressure, installed new hydrant networks, and created strict alarm districts to prevent communication errors. Other U.S. cities followed, establishing professional fire departments, adopting standardized equipment, and constructing water mains capable of high-pressure output. The fire became a case study at the National Firemen's Association, reshaping urban safety strategy across the United States. From these reforms emerged the modern concept of coordinated emergency response, with training, equipment, and communication systems built to prevent another urban disaster of this scale. By the 1890s, Chicago had risen higher than ever, becoming the site of the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition, showcasing electric lights, neoclassical architecture, and modern urban design. The city's population exploded to over 1 million, proving that the fire had not destroyed Chicago, only transformed it. Historians argue that the Great Chicago Fire accelerated America's shift toward modern engineering, stronger civic planning, and the skyscraper revolution. From the ashes of destruction, Chicago reinvented itself and helped redefine the urban future of the United States. Its rebirth became a blueprint for American modernity, proving a devastated city could return stronger, smarter, and more ambitious than ever.